So, number one, metabolic adaptation. Is this real? Uh, it is, yes, there's an adaptation when you lose weight. There is actually a downshift in thyroid function, and it's really unfair. Like, it's really fucking dumb. It's like 7 to 10 days being in a diet, like being in a deficit, that you begin to see thyroid function because it works on a feedback loop. It begins to downregulate. And this is how impressive and intelligent our bodies are. We pick up on even the smallest changes. So, sleep, stress, energy intake, energy output, and your body will start to take in this information and adjust accordingly. This like adjustment, this modification to the hormones it's producing and the amount that it's producing, this is your homeostatic compass because essentially your body is just trying to create balance. It's trying to keep you safe. It doesn't care about you getting shredded. It doesn't matter what your aspirations are. It is always going to adjust accordingly. Now, metabolic downshifts relative to your hormones, relative to thyroid function, your circulating sex hormones, cortisol, like, yes, that is something that does happen. And it's very much based on the experience of stress and how you're able to regulate your stress, how you're able to manage it. So, you've heard probably at this point, if you are new to the channel, I have a video specifically on cortisol. It's a short one. It's like, I don't know, it's like 10, 15 minutes. It was a while back. And in it, I'm going directly into like the effects cortisol has on strength training, on sleep, on well-being, on libido, on fat loss, on muscle building. And these are things that we do expect in a fat loss phase. We do expect them to become dysregulated. But it really comes down as far as like whether there's going to be an adaptation that is going to impede or slow fat loss. It really comes down to your perception of both real and perceived stress. And this includes your level of discomfort, the degree in which you are stressed out about your diet. So some people, they're very, very accustomed to sitting at a low body fat level. Some people's hunger signaling does favor, I would say, more so maintenance, whereas others, like they cope with stress by eating and eating in excess, and they're not very present and tuned into how they're feeling. So it's very easy to overfeed. And regardless of, whether this is a chemical issue, there are individuals who are more so predisposed to lower levels of leptin, meaning that they are not as sensitive to feeling full, meaning it takes a lot more food for them to actually feel full. Regardless of this, how you perceive what you're doing, like your level of discipline that you have to exercise, that is ultimately going to run up a scoreboard in the background. And that's what I call dietary fatigue. If you're someone who has a very low level skill of dieting, meaning you've had little experience, you have very minimal like coping mechanisms and strategies on managing dietary fatigue, then even a very small deficit is probably going to stress you out. It's probably going to be a heavier lift, metaphorically. Some people, you tell them like, hey, let's cut 500 calories. Let's start doing, 2 hours of cardio a week. They're like, cool. Like nothing changes physiologically. Now, there are ways that you can improve your skill of dieting, and that's something I fully believe that, like, we need to be more empathetic with people coming to us coaches and professionals and understand that, like, not everyone is at the same benchmark. Not everyone knows these coping skills or realizes the magnitude that different approaches can have in terms of managing dietary fatigue. This is also why we need to make sure that if we're trying to lose fat, we're not just kind of holding static and accumulating dietary fatigue in the background. That will happen. So that's one component of the metabolic adaptation is really your perception of stress, and I guess really two components. Your perception of stress, how well you're able to handle the diet itself, but then like chemically, hormonally, the changes that happen at your actual metabolism. Now, separate from that, there also is an adaptation depending on how much weight you lose. This, I think, is very overstated, and I'll tell you why. So, most of the bodybuilding preps that I've done, I've come down from anywhere from 140 to 150 pounds down to about 120, sometimes even under that. Now, in the instance where I went about 20, 25 ish pounds down, This last contest prep, I was very strict with tracking like so much data, an obnoxious amount of data. I tracked my heart rate as I did cardio and as I got smaller. And a lot of people don't believe this. Like, I mean, not necessarily to me, they just don't believe this is possible. But in this process of going from like 142, 143 down to like 116, I made very minimal adjustments to my calories. Like, I think the first week I was around 1,600. Um, I dropped it the next week because I saw like I wasn't seeing the rate of change that I wanted to. So I went down like another 100 calories just to see did that make a difference. Um, Over the course of, let's say, I think it was like 15 to 20 weeks. I progressed cardio. I increased the duration, but I kept the intensity and like target heart rate very consistent the entire time. I never got up to more than an hour a day. And that was like very much towards the end of the contest prep. Even then, there was really only like 1 week towards the tail end where I went down to like 1,300 calories on my non-training days, and, spoiler, this show I came in much too lean. So this was a, like, overcorrection, but it also, like, goes to show even without changing calories, I mean, like, you aren't going to necessarily adapt to a specific caloric amount. But I'll say, like, the big asterisk here is that I was incredibly strict with food reporting. I didn't do cheat meals. There was very low opportunities, reduced opportunities for me to overeat. I weighed everything raw. I tracked my vegetables. Like this, I know it sounds very OCD, and for like recreational athletes or casual dieters or for people not in bodybuilding, that can sound very disordered. But keep in mind, like, I'm a professional bikini competitor, and this was my first time prepping myself for a professional show, and I wanted to make sure that like there was no room to fuck this up, to not come in as conditioned as I needed to. And I mean, like, you'll have seen the pictures, like I really overshot it. And I'm proud of that. But when it comes to that metabolic adaptation, like how much did I actually burn from these cardio sessions? Because weightlifting is highly variable. You don't burn a lot of calories from just lifting weights. The cardio sessions themselves, like I tracked it with my Apple Watch. I tracked, cardiovascular endurance, and there's an adaptation there. I got better at cardio the more I did it. The calories that I burned, I mean, like they weren't nearly as much because I also lost like 20 pounds, but there wasn't this huge drop off. Like, I mean, by the time I got to 120, I was still able to maintain a heart rate of still like something pretty manageable, closer to like 120, 130, using the same settings on the treadmill, using the same percentage of incline, using the same speed. And I found that, like, I mean, yes, like I adapted cardiovascularly, but it's not like I just stopped losing body fat or stopped burning calories because I began to adapt. So, I think the actual change, I remember I did the math, it was like maybe like 100, 140, 50 calorie difference. But when you look at body mass, going from like 140 down to a little under 120, I mean, that is a significant drop for someone who's only 140 now, then, or at that time, 120. That's a pretty high percentage of my total body weight. So, we have to consider that. How much weight are you actually losing? Um, can you expect to burn the same amount of calories, specifically with something like cardio, if all variables are held constant? If you lose a lot of weight, like mass moves mass, it costs more energy for you to move more weight around, especially if you have a high degree of muscle. But for individuals who lose big chunks of weight, we'll see a downshift there as well, but not nearly to the degree that you think, and not to a point that you're just going to have a cessation of fat loss. And that's where I think the definitions around this are incredibly important, because there's like impedance, reduction, slowing, and then cessation. And like you're not going to hit a wall where you just can't lose fat. This is the thing that I want you to take away from this. If there's one key point, I really hope Emily clips this. You are not going to stop losing body fat even if your hormones are suboptimal. Even if you're clocking in with a TSH of 2.0, 3.0, even if you got triple zeros on your sex hormones, your testosterone is shit, and you're not ovulating, it doesn't mean that a deficit won't work for you. A deficit will always work. By definition, a deficit will put you in a position where overall weight will go down, and hopefully it is body fat depending on outside variables. But With that being said, it might cost more for you to lose weight. It might take more effort. It's almost like you're paying a tax on your effort. So even though you're putting forth the same amount of effort, you're in the same kind of deficit, things might be slower. How much slower? It really depends. There's not a one size fits all answer.